Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some of you and peace out to the rest of you. Black Heart sign of Black in again, asking you to hit that share button because the message is more important than the messenger. And when you hit share, we all benefit as opposed to just me. Listening to The Art of Ibmore's Red Pill Live, volumes 7 and 8, still having to listen to the rest of 8. I learned so much from Jessica and Light, BGS, Edward, and Art himself. And ironically, the experiences they said that they had trying to be with and keep Western black women, especially the sufficiently attractive Western black women, were the same experiences I had just trying and not even trying, and not even being with them. But even just in trying to be seen as equal to the black men they did choose. Yet these same experiences were the ones I was told I was not having, that I was delusional and that I was imagining and that I had a persecution complex, even from loved ones in my family. I considered the possibility I had one, but as you know, it's not paranoia when someone really is out to get you. And it's not schizophrenia when you actually saw what you saw. It's called something else, and it's called being accurate. Now, black folk, especially our sisters, have this need to be right. The best way to fulfill that need is to be careful before you jump to conclusions. I was, but I was told that I was not. In my last recording, I pointed out how at a job I had one experience with some sisters looking out for me on the job, and this was when a white woman was after two black men, me being one of them. Ironically, this was when I came to know how black women were so hard on black men in other jobs when they were in HR, because this was when I was able to make the comparison. See, I had no comparison to make before that. And this got to me. See, the irony is that when I informed my wife at that time that there was this threat to begin with, the white woman sitting up saying stuff to the boss trying to get us fired, just so that my wife would be prepared if this white chick succeeded, my wife didn't understand that I was telling her how I was targeted because a white woman felt insecure. She understood this black nigga's effing up again and is about to get fired. And maybe he was never laid off from his last job either. He probably got fired from that too because he's a black man and therefore a bad worker. No, I was a good worker. And I was being treated like crap because the economy was still bad and I was still black. And when I went back to my hometown years later, almost 8 years after this, I was interviewed by 4 black women at a time I didn't expect to be interviewed. I walked in to sign some paperwork, and I was taken to a room, and there were 4 sisters in there. I didn't expect it, but they asked me questions, and I answered them, and they lauded and they respected me, and I was hired. Then I was supported too, and through that semester, this was the second time it happened. Through that semester, I was supported, especially by Mrs. Terrell, and no one could come after me with the racist stuff inside the school. And I feel gratitude for Mrs. Terrell up until today. Now, did she have some of the trauma that sisters have been through? She had, yes. But by the same token, she was very level-headed. And she was very fair. And she would not blame the innocent for what the guilty had done. And this made all the difference. But the system was still racist, and the school was still bad, and the black men were still supposed to go to only bad schools and black classes, to which I was also assigned. So it was of no benefit of me to stay, and frankly, I got a job in the Middle East shortly after that semester ended. But my last day in the United States as a resident, not a visitor, I went back and I thanked her from the bottom of my black heart. I was lucky in that regard, because I'd had 2 scenarios in which black women defended me corporately. One was in Atlanta, the other one was in my hometown. And in both cases, they banded together to do it. There were many other black men that never experienced that in corporate America. Now, in the mating market, they would all agree to make things more difficult and more expensive for me than for other black men. And I know because they all did it. And I would count even the ones that had no options and other men that were shooting their shots at me. Because if that's what the hell it took for them to shoot their shots at me, it's the same thing. And they had the same mindsets as the ones who were sufficiently attractive, who said, let's raise the price when Blackheart comes around the corner. I know because they all did it even when I was not shooting any shots. The message had to be sent anytime men and women were together, with a few exceptions, but in 2 jobs I was defended by them, not persecuted. Other black men, when I began to listen to them, had either no experience, neutral experiences, or bad experiences with black women in corporate. The ones with good experiences, I never got to hear. Now sure they exist, but they aren't the ones that I got to hear. See, they would have no reason to volunteer this, as people don't have to vent about positive experiences. You don't have to get a positive experience off your chest. But also no one I met had a positive experience when I would bring the subject up myself. And I brought it up myself because in my mind, black women were either very defensive of black men or very harsh and offensive against them, not neutral. This is what I understood before I started to bring this up in conversations to other men, until I heard other black men describe specifically bad experiences, not good. I realized how lucky I had been in that regard. And this is part of how I know that many black women don't hate black men. And this is why I don't go in on them for being black. This is why I don't associate their melanin with their aggression. This is why I will listen with a sympathetic ear when they don't know I'm listening. And understand that they do feel hurt by black men when they have had bad experiences. But I sum that up by pointing out how these bad men are the ones who have the most chances in our community. And just as a few black men are dating or just fornicating with a lot of black women and making the babies, so too are a few black men who are sick out there fondling or molesting the majority of underage victims and traumatizing them. Women aren't making up the existence of these men. They're just either overexposed to only them or they overexpose themselves to them in their teens and in adulthood, because these guys are already being chosen by other women. Now this brings me back to that romantic market. I described already in my video from last May what I experienced, actually in more than one. I described how I was told that it was because of my clothes, my lines, my walk, everything, only to find out that at that age, black girls who no other guys wanted would not find fault with these things. So that meant that these things weren't really that bad. In one video, how black consciousness and colorism led me to the Ibmo red pill. And even in another one, how colorism affected my libido, I told you the process in which I was led to such a confusion and being so misinformed with mixed messages that I can't tell choosing signals today when a woman is attractive. And my libido was low, and I'm easily turned off altogether. Now, fortunately, as a married man, I can perform, and I don't mind it. But when I wasn't married, it was easy to live by myself. And I realized it was too easy because of this. See, what many don't know is that one of the reasons why I recorded a lot of things I recorded beforehand, before I got married to my non-ADOS wife, was because I wasn't sure if I would get a chance to record it after getting married. I didn't know how busy I might get. But one thing I did not share with anyone at the time, because it was nobody else's problem, but now it may be relevant so that you understand what's happening to other men, is that I was worried about if I would be able to perform because of the brain, not the body, but would my brain be able to perform when we're alone together and she has her rights. Now, this was a damage I feared, not because of non-ADOS black women, but specifically because of ADOS, black British, black Canadian women, on rare occasions, black women from other parts of the Americas, mostly the English-speaking nations. Yard, you know what I mean, Jamaica, as an example. I was just like, okay, you know what? I don't know what's going to wind up happening. And even Namibia. I'll never forget this. ratchet chick I met from Namibia back in college. She was nice to look at. I might have given her a shot if she'd had a slightly different personality. But she was everything bad about a woman from back home and everything bad about a woman from the U.S., all rolled into one. Nothing good from either side. And I remember because one day at a club I was singing along with the music and she just struck me in my head. It didn't hurt, but it surprised me. I looked and I said, "What the hell are you doing?" And she was like, "You don't call me no hoe." And I told her, "Nobody called you one. Why would you do that? You know damn well I didn't call you one." "Oh, I thought you was singing ho, ho, ho." No. I was singing what this guy's singing. And I wasn't even looking at you. You just hit me because you felt like hitting me. And that was the last time I saw her. That was just one example. And I was saying that to say that the effery did not stop based on where I would look in the black world. So you can understand why, now that you know this, you can understand why a few months ago I was kind of leery. Over half a year ago I was leery. I was wondering, how am I going to perform? Will I be able to? What's going to happen? What's going to jump into my mind at the time that I don't need it to? Now, granted, there were things I did wrong in my early teens, as all guys have to do, since we have to figure out what the women want. It's not the other way around. The difference was this. I was told and shown that I was worse than every other black male in my age group when it came to this. And I actually considered the possibility that it was true. However, when you consider the possibility of something negative about yourself being true, you change it. So I changed several things to make sure that I would not be a bad catch, let alone the worst. And this is before I even started shooting my shots. But the results were the same until I became violent with some other black males my age in unrelated incidents. When I saw the change in the pattern, finally, I told some people, including my own parents, what I was observing. And frankly, many of them said I was seeing it wrong. I considered the possibility that I had the wrong ideas of what I was seeing. And again, reliably so, I turned out to be right years later when I listened to white guys in 2012 on the MGTOW channels. I was like, so these girls and women were treating these white guys like this too. And I was a little surprised because I had learned this in 2012 about MGTOW, and I had already learned in 2001 that the differentiated treatment I had gotten was due to my phenotype, which was out of my control. But I had also forgotten that I was told that. So the reason was subconscious, that I was not surprised. However, in 2017, I had my memory jarred, as I told you all, by my friends' attempts to hook me up with 3 different sisters, all of them from the West. 1 from the Bahamas, 2 from New York. Now, the one that my friend said looked the best was also the only one that was not interested. And that pattern jarred my memory and made me recall that I was always undervalued, specifically by black women. But this time I had other memories since then. See, abroad, I was not seen as less than other men. And ironically, the one African country in which I'd had experience with a good relationship was a North African country, not a tropical African country, the women of which I would have preferred if you had asked me before I met my Moroccan ex. And I remember what my 3 colleagues in Atlanta had told me in 2001. This was in August of 2017 that I had this recall. And on August the 2nd, I recorded and uploaded Why Even Black Militants May Have to Marry Non-Blacks. I think I had this recall on August the 1st. Or it might have been the 2nd. I think it was the 1st I had it. And so I uploaded Why Even Black Militants May Have to Marry Non-Blacks on the 2nd. And I addressed it as though black men and black women would have to face this and consider marrying out if you were the one that other black folks wouldn't give a shot. Later on, I heard about Me Too when I met 2 raving feminists in my job, and now I don't tell black women that they may have to date out. I don't tell them that because they don't. Now I come on and I say what's fully militant, but it's true, and I can back it up. We did not drive sisters away. They drove us away. When they date out, they're being hypocrites. When we do it, it's because that's what the options were. Yes, it's a double standard. It's a correct double standard. It was them who made it correct. So after meeting these raving feminists and hearing about Me Too, that was it. I listened for almost a year before I really started to talk. Well, about half a year before I started to really address this. And I looked at my same video around November. I looked at that same video about how some of us would have to marry out, and I listened to it. And what did I discover? On the right side of my page was Black and Negro manosphere content. Where had you niggas been all my life? Man, look, after listening to these brothers, I realized that sisters have been doing this to brothers in general. As long as they were thinking brothers and not the white man's negative stereotypes of black men, they had this done to them. They described the same gaslighting, mind games, lies, discoveries, and insulting differentiated treatment from my own experience, the difference only being that many of them had dealt with 2 or 3 of these things in the past, while I had dealt with all of them by the time I was 35, most of it by the time I was 25. Between 25 and 35, when I was married, I only had one more experience left to get, and I got it. So at that point, I had confirmation of what I had observed, and not only from the guys who were mistreated, but alpha male strategies, angry man, Alan Roger Curry, C. Boogie, Ron Wills. They actually confirmed that they knew women who would choose them and treat us like this, lie about it, and then treat them in completely opposite manners. In a nutshell, they confirmed that not only was it free for them, but we were footing those bills, and they weren't going to be presented with the bills anytime soon because they had to discover that we were being presented with the bills. Ron Wills even said that if they told the truth, we couldn't handle it. Edward Anderson and Obsidian said that they have a right to their preferences, but they must live with the consequences of their choices. And other men said it was the dishonesty and lying about what women wanted that set men up for the red pill rage later in life, which is why women should be honest or at least silent, no matter what Ron Wills thought their lies had avoided. But in addition to all of this, I now had experience in other cultures and extensive experience in one other, and I knew that this was not the norm worldwide, and that Western women's expectations were considered ridiculous even by women in other cultures, no matter what female nature is. You now have the reason for which I am not only vocal now, but also as stubborn as a mule about this. The information that I've since learned after speaking in the Black manosphere only further confirmed the stances. And I've learned another lesson. As a child, I learned to consider correction from others and listen to it, at least hear it out. As an adult, I've learned to listen to correction from Western women, let them finish, and then do the opposite because they need to consider the chances that they are full of crap. And usually they are lying consciously. If there's something I really do need to change, they'll say it. But would they ever admit that they are looking to take without giving simply because of things beyond men's control, beyond my control, while looking to give without taking from other men, a few other men, a minority because of what they also don't control? I repeat my stance, the way April Mason doubled down when the video showed that Cynthia Collier was no victim and that Uber driver said no one followed them. The issue is not the men, no matter how short, no matter how much we don't know about how women want to be approached, no matter how broke we get, no matter how even immature we may be or how awkward we can be, unless our issue is that we have overlooked these same things in women and still allowed laws to change as though we're somehow identical and even equal. The issue is that they aren't transparent, they aren't forthcoming, even with their own male relatives, and in many cases, they're outright liars. The issue is not us, it's them. The issue is that the gender that is capable of talking endlessly about everything else, especially whatever bores or irritates men, is incapable of telling men what the hell they want in us and from us, which is what matters to us most in dealing with them. And now they're upset that social media has allowed us to tell each other what we figured out because they wouldn't say it, and we're withdrawing because of it. I'll say to the detractors of IPMOR and SYSBM what I said to my students when they all threatened to gang up and lie on me so that they could get free grades without actually performing academically in both countries. To hell with your unity. You change who the F you are at your core, or we can all die in a gunfight. But you will not get me to lie and give away for free what you should earn when everyone else already earned it. You will not treat me as less than and live your life the same way afterwards, nor will you do it to someone else in front of me and live your life the same way afterwards. It's only a fair fight when the good guy wins. And I've behaved specifically to not be the bad guy. So either my side wins or no one survives the fight to claim victory. This is why I'm so stubborn and militant, because I witnessed with my own eyes that that is the right stance. I am so stubborn and militant because I sat up and listened to lies not knowing they were lies, only to discover that they were lies later, no matter who told them, and many told them. I am so stubborn and militant because my own opposition proved that that was the right stance to take. A conciliatory stance does not do much good. And some would say, well, what do you mean it doesn't do much good? What I mean is not only does it not get the draws now, but I mean that it also is not going to help my children. It ain't going to help my daughters, because if I take this conciliatory stance, the message that will be sent to my daughters is, well, men are very forgiving. So don't think you have to change or be your best self. And it would send a message to my son that we have to be forgiving and that women can't change and be their best selves. And it would pretty much set it up to where my daughters would have no reason to check who they are. And my son would not be able to get the draws, even if he got married. And that's no way to live. Not for anybody. So if you think that most of us don't give a rat's behind about black people, you have to understand that that's not the case. But we also understand that we cannot save not only black America, we can't save the black British community, the black Canadians. We can't save the black community in the diaspora until we leave its women alone, because they're not willing to change who they are at their core. And this is coming from a man who admits that you have faced colorism, who admits that you have been traumatized and victimized. This is coming from a man who doesn't say that what you're talking about never happened and you're making this stuff up. So you're not going to soften the hearts of the other guys who say there is no colorism, you're making it up. You ain't been victimized. All your rape allegations are false. All your molestation allegations are false. You never tell the truth about being the victim. There are men who say this because they actually believe it, because they're basing that on evidence they've seen. So you got to understand that there are other guys out there, they're going to be harder than I am, harsher than I am. So I'm talking mostly to you ma'am dingoes and goons, more so than I am to the sisters. The ones, especially the ones that like to drive brothers away with their attitude. You got to keep in mind that you goons and ma'am dingoes, you've also been insulted. And one of the ways in which you've been insulted, even though you don't know that this was an insult, is that you have been assumed incapable of committing. Now, you may not have a reason to commit if you're being chased after by so many women. You may see a reason to commit, you may not. But the assumption that they make in their minds on a subconscious and a conscious level is that you can't commit. So they don't ask it from you. The assumption is that you can't bring anything non-sexual of value to the table, that you cannot produce, so they don't ask it of you. That's the difference. And the assumption that they make about most other guys is that we cannot perform sexually, and that we cannot defend them, and that we cannot provide for them safety. But we can provide for them material things and benefits, and that's all we can do. So in reality, what you fail to understand is that they're stereotyping us on both sides, really. It's just that there's still a respect they have for you because they're willing to screw you. That's all it is. And you'll take the draws and not provide anything else. And I don't think you should have to. If she talks this stuff about being independent, you don't have to give anything in exchange for it because they're independent. Sex is sex. Sex is an equal trade in that case. That's how that goes. That being said, I will remain stubborn and militant. And I'm pretty much going to say I'm going to remain that way until death, not because I'm just picking a side and I'm going to stay on it even if it's wrong, but rather because they're going to always behave in such a way as to be wrong and to make my stance right. So that's why I'm going to stay on it for the rest of my life. That's also their decision. And I already know the decision they're going to make. They ain't going to change except for the worse. Me becoming less militant, me becoming less stubborn would not make a difference. It wouldn't even help them out. You see, we need to leave, but not all of us are going to. I merely hope that the brothers that are left in the States for whatever reason get shown more appreciation, because they're going to be fewer anyway. In 2020, I agree with O'Shea about one thing. A lot of black wives are going to wind up divorced, because you got men married to black women and married to foreign women alike saying the same thing. Get you a woman from somewhere else. They're not even really running to the white woman, to be honest. That's really not what's happening. See, the white woman will come and pursue them when they don't leave the U.S. When they leave the U.S., they may get pursued by women, whether it's a working girl or a regular woman, somewhere else. If they can go to Colombia, they can go to certain spots in certain cities where the pros hang out and get approached, or they can go to other places and just be nice to people and wind up getting approached. That's what winds up happening. Either way it goes, they're being treated well and they're getting approached. And so there's no reason for them to stay right there in the States where you all are, or Canada, or England for that matter. Hell, Jamaica. And according to some people, Belize. And I'm sure there are other islands I haven't really thought about or mentioned. There's no reason for them to sit up and stay in these areas and then have to shoot their shot at women who only feel proud when they reject someone anyway, and not when they do it politely, but when they reject someone with noise. And granted, every woman ain't like that. I know that, but the ones who aren't, as they said on Art of Ibmore's live stream panel, Volume 7, those women are taken. They repeated again on Volume 8. Those women are taken. Yeah, they exist, but they're gone. They're not on the market. What's left on the market is a problem. And the women know this, and that's why they're projecting it onto the men. Well, the men that are available all got something wrong with them. No, not really. No, actually, they're on the market because of things that are not wrong with them. Because your market is a nigger market. You, sister, are that nigger market. And that's why the good guys wind up left on the market and the good women are not on the market. That's what that's about, really. It's all about that. It's not about the choices that it's not even about men's preferences, because men don't always get to wind up with what they prefer. It's about your preferences. Because at a young age, we're all socialized to try to impress you. And now many of us are beginning to say, we're going to turn that over on its head, and we don't care, even if that's what's been done in other cultures. We're going to turn that over on its head too as well. Because we now know that you have needs, including sexual needs, just like men do. And we now know that you are more likely to buy a toy if you don't get those needs met by an organic man than what a man is. And we now know that you have double standards and hypocrisy deep in you, which is why you were scared of so-called sex robots, even though y'all have had toys on the market for a generation now that we know of. Which is why it is that when we go with women of other backgrounds, usually not even white, and they approached us or they were nice to us and you didn't even want us, you trip. But when you actually just outright sell out and go for a strictly D-white man who robbed everybody because he has the money from robbing everybody, we don't even call you a sellout. I'm the one that does. Most of these other men don't do it. I'm the one that says, look, I know you a sellout for doing it, because look who you went after. You stopped with brothers, you went straight to the white man. You didn't pick another man of color. On average, you didn't do this. You usually went after straight for the white man. That was it. That's what you went for. Once you left brothers alone, you jumped the fence completely. So after having to find out that I wasn't recognizably black enough, what do I find out now? That the white man is really the only one other than the black man is man enough for you, even though you don't hold him to the same standards of machismo you hold brothers to. And this is known and open for all to see. Crystal Carrison's husband does not have to defend her and her child from attacks of people on YouTube. He's not required to do it. Alexis Ohanian is not required to defend Serena Williams. He's off the hook for that, and he has less money. I mean, come the F on, right? Hell, Prince Harry, I mean, he doesn't have to be in the gym for the women, sisters, to consider him fine, talking about something he looked like a snack. Wait, so he doesn't have to be in the gym. But brothers got to be buff and in the gym so that they can intimidate other men. But Prince Harry doesn't have to look like that. You see what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, we're seeing nothing but hypocrisy. I mean, it's not, I used to think, okay, you know, the men and the women have hurt each other. Now I realize the men and women have hurt each other, but there's still hypocrisy and there's still a double standard. Because we men have given the sisters, you goons and ma'am dingoes know this well, that we've given the sisters options in us that we did not have in them. They've had choices. And I also want to say this too. Then I'm out. I already know that, see, when it comes to these white folk, I know because I heard about some porn star named Jenna Presley. And I assume that she went into the business after I became Muslim because I don't know her. But Donovan Sharp had something about this, about Jenna Presley leaving porn and then, you know, marrying a pastor. And how the pastor had his own little ulterior motives because it was his chance to get a sample of a porn star that he may have enjoyed watching before. I'm going to say this too. See, even in their community, you won't want to talk about how we're the most broken community, and I'm telling you that we're not. Because even in their community, it's the same thing. Jenna Presley, if she's a porn star, she's going through a large number of dinglings, more than she can remember unless she was only in it for a few months. She was going through a large number of them, a lot of them, plenty of them. She's coming in with a body count far higher than the man she's marrying. He's a pastor. Now, he has money, but he's a pastor. He could be a corrupt pastor. He wouldn't go through as many dinglings. I mean, I'm sorry, he wouldn't go, hopefully not. He wouldn't go through as many vaginas as she's going through dinglings. Even if he's a corrupt pastor, he just wouldn't. So since he's a pastor, and he's not a male porn star, let's just call it that. Since he's not that, it's not an even match. He's bringing money and a lower body count to the table. What is she bringing? A hell of a past. And she's not going to want to stick around with this guy. We already know. What she wants is an ex-male porn star to have the same money and income as this pastor. And that's why I have said, even to the white audiences before, this pastor, I forgot his name, he needs to leave the cloth, go do some porn for the same length of time she did it, then come back and say, okay, now I can marry you because we're on equal footing. That's not what's going on here. That's not what's allowed. This is what it is that I'm telling you, that there's this hypocrisy. It's coming from their end. And if you're so pro-black, you would not be trying to excuse black women imitating the same fuckery that they got from Miss Ann. You wouldn't be trying to facilitate something like that. Let them get off the hook for that and let them find a way out of the consequences of the bad decisions they made. You wouldn't be trying to pave the way for that. For them to sit up here and do X and Y and Z because these white women do it. Turn around and cannot even afford the consequences as well as the white chicks can because we always make less money. And then find one of us to come along who they never wanted in the first place and then take them on with the high body counts of somebody else's kids and just rescue them. For what? So they can go back and cheat later? Give our resources to the guy they really wanted so they can consolidate all that they wanted in that one dude? That's why? That's what you're saying. You think you're pro-black, and I'm telling you you're not, because as a pro-black man, I understand that all human beings need consequences, and they need tough consequences in order to avoid making bad decisions and oppressing people to not pay for them. There's a reason why over here where I live, there was a time, not even too long ago, where if you got caught cheating, be you the husband or the wife, you got caught cheating, it took a lot of witnesses. The burden of proof was really, really, really high. But once that burden of proof was met, you got executed for it. For adultery. Man or woman, whoever's married and screws someone else and is proven to have done it gets stoned to death or got stoned to death in the past. There was a reason for that, and that is that the party that is aggrieved does not need to go through a divorce and custody hearings and the division of property and all that stuff. They don't need that. If he cheated on his wife, she shouldn't have to file for a divorce. All she has to do is find absolute proof that he did this stuff, and women can do that. He's gone. That's it. Now she's free. No paperwork on her part. None of that. Just she's free. Now, many women didn't try to do this because they didn't want to lose their husbands. But what I'm saying is that was allowed. And the reason that it was allowed is so that neither man nor woman who was not cheating and being cheated on would ever have to sit there and just tolerate and deal with the consequences of someone else cheating, while the cheater just gets to keep cheating and get away with it. So they would not have to lose anything. They would not have to lose one red cent. All they got to do is be careful not to accuse the other party of cheating without proof. That's all they got to do. And if you don't trust the party anymore, you simply file for a divorce and say, I don't trust him. And the woman can ask for a divorce, and if she states the case, the judge will grant it. And the man can divorce her without even the case, because everybody understands that a man will request a divorce only if he means it. A woman will request a divorce because of some jewelry she didn't get that her friend got. This is known here. So I'm through, I'm not through being fair. Not that. But I am done speaking in such a way that it makes it clear that I'm trying to be fair. I'm done with that. I'm straight up from now on. For me, it's double standards. The ones that are fair, but it's double standards. And I'm not going to go in on men because I've already said the only thing we need to do is be harder. We need to start acting more like they do. Come up with standards for them to meet in exchange for the ones that came up with us to meet. Stuff like that. You're older, you're out of high school. Why the hell should she still be in high school and you stay with her? Okay, you all are a couple. Now you turned 18 or you reached the age of consent and she didn't. You call it off. That's what you do. 18th birthday. Really, I'm not telling you to date anyway outside of marriage. But if you're trying to survive, what do you do when you turn 18? You call it off. You pick up that phone. And when she says happy birthday, you like, oh, yeah, thank you. Look, it's illegal for me to be with you anymore like that. What are you saying? I'm saying I'm not going to jail. No, I don't hate you. Thanks for the gifts you got me. I'm just not going to jail. Because then if I go to jail, how am I going to be with you? You see? So I tell you what, we can suspend this till you reach your 18th birthday. You know, you got to be rough with them. You have to be as difficult as they are being, because they don't have a respect for most men simply because they don't have to face the same difficulty in acquiring you. Now, they will refuse to face it, but they still will lose respect for you because they don't have to face it. You don't make them face it. And so there's a price to pay when they're trying to go after some of the same few guys every other woman wants. At least then the thing they have to suffer is the competition with the other women. And maybe being cheated on with these other women too. At least there's that. Because see, in their mind, what their understanding is that they're difficult for you to get. Why are you so easy for them? So you got to be difficult. And that's the other thing. That's one of the other main things they're just never telling you. They just won't come and explain this to you. Your own mother wouldn't tell you. So you got to just go ahead and implement it yourself. And you got to be militant when you do it. You can be nice and kind when they're nice to you. I can be nice and kind to my wife because she is nice. I don't have to act militant with her because she doesn't pull these same games. But even then, there is something. There's one thing that bothers her about herself. And I'm going to find out when we're able to change that, when it's not there anymore. I'm going to see if she acts different. And if she acts the same, I keep her. And if she changes, she's out and she knows it. She may forget, but she's known before. If she changes because she changes, in other words, if one change leads her to make another change, she gone and will be replaced. And she will not get the divorce finalized until I've stuck it in another wife. She will find that out. She knows that because I already told her. I told my son that that's how you do it, and I told my son this where she could hear it. But then I don't have to be mean to her. And if they understand that we can be militant, you probably don't even have to. It's like many mob bosses used to say, once your enemies know that you will kill, you don't have to kill as many. I hope that what I'm saying one day won't be true anymore, but in the meantime, I hope it's a benefit. Black Heart, sign of Black out. Assalamu alaikum.